electric guitar bicycled all the way here. So does all his own pedaling. And Gary Weis, who was the most wonderful collaborator whom I found and discovered and worked with on Saturday Night Live when we made a film about drag racing, which featured me and Dan Aykroyd in full drag running down an alley. And without whom we could not possibly have made this event, which you are now about to see, those of you who've never seen it. So this is, all you need is cash. And we'll be back to answer questions and responsibility afterwards. Thank you very much.
You were mentioning this is the first time you've seen this film with an audience on a large screen.
You are the first audience to see this film. It is extraordinary, actually, because I've never heard laughs on it. It was really amazing. It's a surprise, isn't it, Garrett?
I remember nothing. It's good to see Mick Jagger. You know, in fact, I heard a story about Mick just recently on the radio about laughter and things like that, because somebody said, Mick, where did you get all these lines in your face from? And he said, laughter. And the guy said, nothing is that funny.
Well, at the beginning of the film, we saw the spot where Dirk and Nasty met. And I was looking through our collection in the museum, and we have a program called Do Not Adjust Your Set. Back in the 60s, pre-Python. Is that where Eric, you and Neil first worked together?
Yeah.
Could you talk about those early days?
Sure. Well, little I remember. We did a children's show called Do Not Adjust Your Set with Michael Palin, Terry Jones, myself, and eventually Terry Gilliam came and joined in the second season. And each week there was a musical passage provided by the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band.
I think musical is stretching.
Yes. There was a passage, a difficult passage provided by the Bonzo Dog Band, whose attempts to make music with all sorts of strange, hitherto unused instruments were very, very successful. And Neil was the pianist, and very fortunately, I mean, you took over once, didn't you? Because I had a very bad dose of flu. I sat in with him very shortly afterwards. He was very sick, and I sat in and sang my pink half of the geranium. Which I still don't understand what it
My
means.
pink half of the drain pipe.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. They told me geranium. Well, never mind.
Was a bit of a
anyway, my pink half of the drain pipe.
I thought you sang Love is a Cylindrical Piano as well.
Yes, I did.
With the seal of good housekeeping.
You were off 2 weeks.
Kind of guy in the seal outfit. I think we should move on.
Okay. It was terrific stuff, really.
And we were coming backstage when we showed the Lorne Michaels introduction of the Rutles on American television. That, first of all, Eric, you're playing the Sting part, you're playing George Harrison, and the music was a little bit different. Can you just talk about that original sketch?
Well, yeah, I mean, when Eric kindly asked me to sort of join him on the Run the Weekend thing, BBC Two, the whole idea was to do things on a cheap budget, because Rutland was the smallest county in England, and BBC Two loved the idea of very small budgets. At the end of the first series, remember the fiasco, they couldn't find the key to the drinks cupboard. in the hospitality suite. And I overheard one BBC executive saying to the other, "And do you know the whole series has cost less than one Lulu show?" So it was Lulu. Well, I mean, you must know Lulu, don't you? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it sort of came about. You know, it looked like a cheap way of parodying the Beatles and doing Hard Day's Night in black and white, speeding up the film.
What used to happen is that I used to write the show, and Neil would send me tapes of songs he'd like to have, included, and I'd try and write links that came in and out. And he just sent me one which was just so Beatley. It was fantastic. We had the idea to do the Rutles from it, and I got the idea of the joke of running away from camera, and that's how that thing evolved. And I had to say something, so I wrote all of the thing about the Rutles, And then later on, I went on Saturday Night Live to host it. And Lorne Michaels, whom we should acknowledge as the executive producer of this, who got us all the money to make it all, said, show that clip. And we just got all girls would write in. The switchboard was flooded with responses to the Rutles.
Do you remember the thing was that at the time somebody was offering millions of dollars to get the Beatles back together, so Lorne was offering $3,000. And George Harrison came on the show and Lorne's got the money waving it. "All this can be yours, George." And George is saying, "All of it for me?" He said, "Well, no, you have to share it with the others. But maybe you don't have to tell Ringo." So there's quite a build-up to it, really, wasn't there?
And Ricky, how did you join? Speaking of George Harrison, how did you become?
Well, I had met Eric in Barbados, and he simply asked me if I wanted to be a Rutle. And I found myself in the middle of this madness. It's wonderful fun.
We should say, I should say, because I was the last person to speak to him a few days ago, but I really do miss the fact that John Halsey, Barry Wom can't be here tonight. Because I tried to persuade him to go, but he's in a highly successful gig at the moment. He runs Barry Wom's pub in Cambridge. No, it isn't called Barry Wom's pub. It's called the Castle Inn in Cambridge. And it was just too difficult for him to get away at short notice. But he sends his love. He sends his love to everybody who remembers the cigarette trick and being two separate hairdressers and all that. He's a wonderful guy. I think he's the world's funniest man, actually, Barry Wom. He's good. He's damn good.
But it's only foot and mouth disease, actually, is the answer.
The film we just saw is an amazing supergroup of the two great comic talents. Saturday Night Live meets Monty Python. Could you just talk about how the two groups merged and how that came to be?
Well, it wasn't really intended. We made it, first of all, apart from the exception of Gary and Lorne's, the executive producer. We all went over to England and we had about 5 weeks to shoot this in, didn't we, in a little mini budget. And then we got it back to New York. And I personally felt there was something missing. I felt we were missing performances because it was great and we got it down, but there was nobody was acting in a sort of big way, And so I wrote a scene for Belushi because I felt that we needed some meat. And then we wrote something for Gilda and Bill Murray. So we sort of padded it out. We did some more shooting. And then we also wrote the scenes that went down to New Orleans, which was sort of added on again.
Right, yes.
So it was just like saying, oh, what's missing? Because after a bit, doing a parody documentary, you get the idea, you get the gag, and no matter what you do, it's hard to keep our interest again. So that was towards the end, trying to bring in these different people, and do some funny stuff.
And Gary, do you have any remembrances of production?
I remember nothing. I just remember it being, it's one of those things that just, it sounds like a cliche to say, but it is one of those projects that you start doing and everyone got on. It's true, except for Erica in the editing room once, maybe, or something. But no, honestly, it's just what everyone got on and everyone had a great time doing it and it turned out good. You know what I mean? It's just one of those deals that happens. And it doesn't happen very often because we all do stuff all the time, and that's my best memory of it, honestly.
It was very timely, was it? I remember people in Liverpool,
that's right,
praying fans, they were running at the cars, and a couple of girls really fell over and hurt their knees, and I said, hey, don't have to do this like this, you know, it's only a movie. He said, oh, you're all right, you know, we really know. And because everybody, it was a very timely time to make it, wasn't it? Everybody knew the story. Because, I mean, let's face it, I mean, the Rutles was based on an original lunch by the Beatles, wasn't it?
Slightly, yes.
But then, you know...
I remember, the only thing I remember was is when you and I, you were dressed as Nasty in the sort of heavily bearded days, and I was Dirk, you know, and next was 1968, and George Harrison had come to visit us on the set, and we're standing there, the three of us, and people came over and went, oh, the Beatles! They asked us for our autographs, and they ignored George.
Speaking of the Beatles, Neil, you were the only one to appear both in Magical Mystery Tour and in Tragical History Tour. Can you talk about the experiences of those two films?
I've been starving ever since.
You're right. Can you talk about, I mean, the Bonzos appeared in a scene of...
Yeah, well, I can't exactly remember how, you know, we got onto that, except that Roger McGough, Liverpool poet and things like that, was in this group, The Scaffold, along with Paul McCartney's brother, Mike. And so the Bonzos and The Scaffold used to know each other, and Mike heard that Paul was making this movie, and I think Mike suggested to Paul, you ought to get the Bonzos in there. And so, you know, the Beatles had seen us, because we'd played at, I think, the Savile Theatre in Shaftesbury Avenue. We played with the Cream, which was good, and we played with the Bee Gees, which was weird. But yeah, so that, you know, the Beatles knew of the Bonzos, so it's just one of those things, just like the Rutles were playing. You know, it just got thrown together in a piecemeal way. And so yes, the Bonzos turned up and did the strip club scene. We never went on the bus, but we went in the strip club.
And then for Rutland, George Harrison appeared on Rutland Weekend
Yes,
television.
this Rutland Weekend Television, we did 2 series, but we started off, I think, with a Christmas special, and I asked George, I leaned on him to come and be on this show, and he kept coming on, and he said, I said, will you sing, will you sing, will you sing? He said, no, this is the sketch he did. He comes and said, no, I just want to be a pirate. I want to be a pirate. Jim Ladd, pieces of eight. I said, no, please just sing. This went on and on throughout the entire show, and then at the end, you saw him, and he came on in his white robe from Bangladesh, and he went, blam, blah, da, blam, blah, blah, da, 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 blam, blam, blah, blam, 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 blah, blah, blah. I want to be a pirate. Which is a great gag. I'm very proud of that gag. And then I just remember getting legless. We were completely legless most of that filming. Which is the English for being completely drunk at the ship. In those days.
I know our audience has questions. This is what we're going to do. We have 2 microphones, so I'll pick 2 people out, and just wait until you get the microphone, and then ask your question. A lot of hands. Begin right here and right over here.